Hello, my name is Bennett, and ever since I was a little boy, I've loved working on projects. Something about making something out of nothing is really intriguing to me. But for the most part, all of my projects are kind of pointless. I wanted to change that and make something that I know will have meaning. I've always wanted to make a boat. I fell in love with the ocean ever since the first time I went on it. So I got to thinking and thought, how could I make a boat and not break my bank while making it? This was in 8th grade, and for whatever reason, I thought water bottles. So for the past 4 years, I've been collecting water bottles. My thought was to repurpose single-use bottles, since oceanic pollution is at an alarming rate. So what if as a proof of concept that with a little bit of thought and engineering, we can turn trash into whatever we put our minds to? Our once beautiful and pristine oceans are quickly becoming invaded with garbage, ranging from plastics to pesticides. You see, although laws to control pollution already exist, they for the most part are ineffective. Laws need to be made all across the world to put an end to oceanic pollution, or at the very least, lessen it. Oil pollution is a very infamous type of pollution. You usually hear about it when a big catastrophe happens and tons of oil spills into the ocean. But oil pollution is much more common than just that. Chronic oil pollution is a non-stop flow of oil, mainly from a leak in an oil tanker. Chronic is a lesser known but more serious form of pollution because it is harder to track, making it harder to stop. Major oil pollution is the more well-known form of oil pollution. This is when an oil tanker sinks and millions of gallons of oil spills out into the ocean. As of right now, some countries have laws preventing oil pollution, like the UK, which allows the oil tankers to only go into certain routes, something that the whole world should look into. Since this prevents oil spills in more places and easier to track chronic oil pollution. Plastic is the biggest form of pollution in the whole world. It's non-biodegradable, it's toxic, and it looks like food to fish who don't know any better. Did you know that there are 5 different masses in the ocean that are nothing but a spinning ball of plastic? Each about double the size of Texas. These gyres consist of tiny pieces of plastic, each the size of a grain of rice, that make their way into the food chain by one fish mistaking it for food. Now that fish has toxins in its body, which gets eaten by a bigger fish. Now that fish has toxins in its body. This circle just keeps on going, killing tons of fish. Plastic needs to be regulated around the world, especially when eco-friendly alternatives are present. Now I know there are efforts across the world to make a change to oceanic pollution and to save our seas. In fact, Japan has banned plastics like bags and utensils in some areas, and living so close to the beach, I see businesses convert to paper and wooden products all the time. The problem is, these laws are not being made worldwide. Pollution will not stop unless there is a law saying so. Yes, people are starting to realize this is not some joke, and they are starting to become more environmentally cautious, but we cannot expect the whole world to do that on their own. We need to have set laws for people to follow. This is how we will notice a difference. Chemical pollution is a type of pollution that I have seen, and when I think about it, I think about the time I went to the beach. The smell of dead fish was strong, and there were dead fish everywhere. It was horrible. And obviously, I've seen a piece of plastic at the beach before. It's basically everywhere you look. But to see all those dead fish, that just didn't sit right with me. Pesticides is what caused all this, and this was because of runoff, which is excess pesticides that have found its way into the oceans. Regulations on pesticides need to be made depending on how far a farm is from a sea. See, I could just sit here and think, what if we do this, what if we do that, and not actually do anything. But I wasn't going to do that. I wanted to show that as humans, we're capable of doing anything we think of. At the beginning of this project, all I had was trash bags full of water bottles, but at the end, I had a boat that was able to hold almost 500 pounds. The way I did this was relatively easy and could definitely be mass-produced, or made at a larger scale. This was mainly just to prove a concept of what we can do. What I love about building things from scratch is that at the beginning, all you have is a vision, but at the end, you've brought it to life. For this project, I had no clue how I was going to build this boat, but after some trial and error, I came up with the idea of stuffing a bunch of water bottles into a crate, then filling the holes with spray foam, then popping them out of the crate, and then after making a frame out of PVC pipe, these boxes of water bottles snugly fit into the frame forming the boat. See, this was just the beginning of the boat. It wasn't too comfortable since sitting on the water bottles made it unstable, so to fix that, I added a piece of wood on top as a deck. This fixed the issue of being unstable, but then it needed a chair, so I added a lawn chair, but that wasn't practical, so especially if I needed to paddle anywhere. Luckily, I got my hands on a trolling motor, so I strapped that on, switched the chair out with a 5-gallon bucket, and had a spinning cushion top, and that made a world of a difference. I was almost happy with the way this was turning out, but I wanted more, so I added a cooler, a rod holder, and some paint. My mentor was Danny Barrios. He's a firefighter, but also an avid fisherman. He was born in the Keys, so he's been on the water his whole life. Just like me, he loves working on projects, so I knew he would be of much help. Through this journey, if you will, I learned many things, but the most valuable did not necessarily apply to boat making. Learning the software Excel was extremely helpful, especially because I plan to study mechanical engineering in college, and Excel will be very helpful for that. Buoyancy and weight distribution is also something I learned about. I knew a little bit about it, but I learned much more making this boat. I'm not sure when this will come in handy, but it's good to know. But the most important one though is time management. I have never been good at this, but for this project I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time, so I planned everything out and worked accordingly. This was much less stressful than anything I've ever done before. Aside from this being one of the most challenging projects I've done, having a plan from the beginning really helped. With the plan, I knew exactly what I needed to do and how to do it. This really helped cut down on the moments where I was stuck or didn't know what to do next. I felt confident the whole time and never got worried about the boat not working. My biggest takeaway has to be time management. Even though I learned a lot, this is something I can apply to everything I do. But learning about all the horrible things that's going on in the ocean is very unsettling. It really opened my eyes to what's going on in the world. I'd very much appreciate it if you would reach out to me and let me know how I did. My phone number is right here on the slide, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much for your time.